What's up, everyone? Kriss here from MTR Network, and we're back with another review. This time, I am reviewing Ava DuVernay's A Wrinkle in Time. Now, before I get into this film in this review, we got to do a small little rant here. So, it's always funny. I'm always seeing the argument between people with kids and without kids about, people without kids want child-free spaces, and people with kids are basically like, hey, you need to deal with our kids, and you can't live without child-free spaces, and look, I get it. I can even be a little, as a childless person myself, I can be a little bit on the annoyed side when I see kids in an area. Now, not something for something like A Wrinkle in Time, which is, more aimed at kids. Like, I understand I'm in a space like that. And look, if you go to a movie theater for a film that's aimed at 12 and 13-year-olds, and we'll get into that more a little bit later, you can't expect not to have kids there. So that's just, deal with that shit, right? But I realized something tonight as I was sitting through the first about 20 minutes of sitting in the theater getting my seat kicked that my issue isn't with kids. No, it is not that I do not like kids. I have come to a realization that it is just fucking bad parents that I can't fucking stand. And I don't mean bad parents in the typical sense where people like blame a parent for their kid crying, because I can't remember where I was somewhere, and I was at the grocery store, and this kid was just bawling out, and the mother wasn't like, you could tell she was a little embarrassed. She was trying to keep the kid quiet. Like, I don't blame her for that. I mean, kids are gonna be kids, right? But yesterday, as I'm sitting in the theater and I'm literally getting my chair kicked and stomped on for 20 minutes, I came to realize that it's not the kid's fault. It was his father. Like, first, his father was talking to him and saw him doing this in my chair. And until I turned around and had to be the bad guy and say, "Hey, can you stop kicking my chair? Can you?" And I was nice about it. I was like, "Hey, excuse me, can you please not put your feet on my chair and not kick my chair?" Never mind the fact that about 10 minutes after I said that, he kept doing it. The kid kept doing it. But the entire time, because I was paying attention, the father was talking to the kid. He was looking at it. It wasn't like the parent was busy with another kid, or, was just, had his back turned. Like, he's engaging with the kid, and he sees this kid, which, like, I know theater seats are on top of each other, but, like, I'm, 5'11", 6 feet tall. Like, my knees don't even hit the front of the seat. So in order for a small human being to do that, they have to slump down their chair. They have to put their feet forward. Like, it is very obvious that your kid is putting the feet on the chair. And never mind the fact that you should be teaching your kid not to put their feet on chairs to begin with, just in general. It's like I was watching them, like, it just, so he knew. And then, but what sealed it for me was when the father got up to walk out, I guess to go to the concession stand or maybe to go to the bathroom, he got up and he started knocking chairs in front of them without a single excuse me or whatever. And that's when I realized it was like, oh, it's not the child's fault. You're raising this little colonizer in training to be a little terror because you aren't even trying yourself. You are completely rude. And it just hit me because I was like, oh, wait, you know what? Adults are rude as shit too. Adults have no sense of personal space. Adults have no way of saying. Adults are nasty. God, go to a bathroom at like, I had the bathroom at our building where I work at. I know there's no kids anywhere around that building. And at one point, I saw pee on top of the urinal. How the fuck do you do that? I have no idea. These aren't kids. These are grown ass adults. So I realized that it's not the kid's fault. It is the parent's fault. Bad parenting. That's what I don't like. I do not like bad parenting. That's where I think the dread of seeing kids on a flight or seeing kids in a theater for an adult movie kind of gets to me, because it makes me go, is this going to be one of those parents that just doesn't give a shit about how rude their kid is? Or, because again, I can deal with a certain level. Again, I'm in the theater. I've been to movies like this. I've been to animated films. Like, you're going to get kids talking. You're going to get kids laughing. You're going to get kids screaming at the screen. You're going to get kids, kicking your chair, And I actually have dealt with an entire movie, a kid kicking my chair, knowing that the parent behind me keeps telling them, hey, please don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Hey, keep your feet down. We know we talked about this. So it's like, in that respect, I was very, I dealt with it. I was just like, well, wait, kids are going to be kids. Fuck, what can I do about it, right? I'm in a kid's film. But when I get something and I see a kid who's deliberately doing something and deliberately bumping into people and deliberately, getting, because they have never been taught to respect boundaries, to respect other people, that's where I get upset. And it's not the kid's fault. It is completely the parent. So I just had to get a little rant in there. I'm not anti-kid. I'm anti-bad parent. And that kind of gets on my nerves. So anyway, let's get into this film and talk about this. A Wrinkle in Time. Here, like I said, it is I think the original novel was 1960, I believe. I'll be honest, I never read it. I was going to do the Audible for it before the film, and I thought better of it. I was like, you know what? I should probably do the Audibles for movies after I see the film, because again, we know the films never live up to the books. So it's just, you're taking a long format and you're putting it into 2 hours. So there's going to be changes, and we'll get into some of those changes, but yeah. So let's get into what I think worked for the film and what didn't work for the film, and then I'll give you my score at the end of the film. Let's check it out. So the first thing I think works really well for this film are the themes of the film. I think that DuVernay and the team have done a good job of, because again, I looked at the general synopsis of what the book was and what they were going for in the book and some of the themes they were going for and what they did in the movie. And I feel like this is a film, especially for the audience it's aimed for, which is young kids, but even as adults, you can see the adult themes in it. And it's this, it has a lot of these themes that I think are really relevant today. Like Storm Reid plays Meg, and without going too much into the story or spoilers, her father, who's played by Kriss Pine, was a scientist, and he's disappeared, and she spends 4 years as this kid who had a really close relationship with her father. Like the film opens up with her father kind of teaching her some science stuff and doing and her working with him in his lab. She goes through that for 4 years of not having her father around anymore because he's disappeared and having to deal with bullying and the things that comes with that. And so what you get is you get this girl who used to be, outgoing and great in school, to this girl who, quite frankly, is depressed. And it doesn't seem like anybody around her understands how depressed she is and that she's acting out because of it. And they basically just kind of tell her to get over it. And I think that this film does a really good job of kind of showing you that just get over it attitude isn't enough. I think for kids, it's that attitude of just get over it. It's just not enough. You have to engage them. You have to give them a reason to basically almost live again. She's dealing with bullying. Like at one point, she lashes out at she's like when I say bullying, I mean this is like terrible bullying. Like, hey, it's the anniversary of your father leaving, so we're gonna leave a mean note that basically attacks you for that and makes fun of you because you're missing your dad. Like that kind of bullying. The her like one of the chief bullies is basically attacking her, and she lashes back out. She hits her in the face with a like a, I don't know if it's a basketball. I don't think it was something that bad, but maybe like one of those little kickballs or something like that, and hits her in the face with it. And the principal calls her in the office and gets mad and says, the child's parents are, they're afraid for their daughter's safety and blah 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 blah. And the entire time I'm like, you should understand what the hell she's going through. Like these kids are literally, they weren't just being mean, they were being torturous, they were being bullies, and yet it's the child who lashes back out who gets disciplined for that. Like, and so with themes like this, that theme, it's the theme of loving yourself. It's the theme of believing in yourself. There's a lot of times throughout this film where Meg doesn't really, she's really, really smart. I mean, almost as smart as her father. And she's always downplaying that. Like, there's another kid in here, Calvin, who clearly likes her and does things like compliment her hair and is trying to warm up to her. And she's very standoffish. And she doesn't. Now, granted, he's a little weird with the hair thing, so I get that. But it's like she's always downplaying what she does. There's a time in this film where she does something based off of science. He goes, "That's amazing," and she just kind of goes, "Oh, well, no, it's not really a big deal." It's this idea that I think it's something that we as adults can also kind of relate to, of downplaying your strengths and downplaying what you're good at because and I'm not saying that her mother wasn't giving her encouragement, but when everybody else around the house is not giving you encouragement, it can make it seem like you're not worth it. And so I feel like those themes here, and like we actually got a before the film started, Ava DuVernay, she did a little video beforehand that kind of introduced the film and said, hey, this are the themes of the film, and this is what we're going for, and this is what we're aiming for. And she even said that one of the things she was trying to do with this film is kind of bring some light, because of all the other films she's done, Selma, 13th, and all these other things that are kind of dealing with the darker side of American history. He wanted to do something that was more light, and more gave us and dealt with the divisive nature that we live in. And so I think that's the whole thing here of what's going on in this film. And I think it works really well for this. Even the big bad, if you will, it is really, kind of shown as being this force that brings negativity out of the people around it, and it's the darkness. So you really get the classic darkness versus light thing here. And yeah, I think that theme, overall thing works. And I think it really is something that's going to resonate with young black girls in particular, but I think young people and adults in particular. I think that's an overall theme that just really works well, and it's presented really well here. Building off of just the themes that work really well in this film, I think also another thing that works for this film is it's very emotional. You're dealing with a child who's lost her father, who is now on the search and mission to find her father and save him, who also feels like really abandoned by her father, who maybe has pursued his science a little bit more than he should have when he has a family right there. You have her dealing with her part of her going on this adventure is her going with her adopted kid brother Charles Wallace, who I'll get into a little bit later. So you get a lot of emotions in this film. You get Storm Reid does a really good job in this film of really portraying the emotions of a young girl who, feels abandoned. Like at one point, she's holding back, trying to find her father because she's afraid of if her father even wants to be found, if her father even still loves her. Like, what's going on here? So it's like, I think and then when you get the reunion of some characters and things like, I really feel like the emotions are really there, and it's just it's gonna make you want to tear up a little bit at moments. And I think it does a really good job in the film. And any film, particularly a kids film, that makes you emotional, and we all know Disney's really kind of good at these kind of things. I think that's a great way of connecting to the audience, and I think it's a great way of not just connecting with the younger audience, but also connecting with the adults that are in the theater as well to see the film. So I just mentioned before Charles Wallace, the adopted brother of Meg in this film, and he's played by, I think it's Deric McCabe, and I don't know how old this little kid is, but and where they got him from. I don't even know if he did anything else, but holy hell, I have this thing about little kids in films that have this creepy vibe to them, and he does it really well. Like, he's at moments when he needs to be creepy, he's very creepy, but he's also just has a lot of personality. Where Meg is more, and it's a very good compliment for the other for Meg, where Meg is more reserved, more introverted, and has kind of retreated in herself. Charles Wallace is the one that talks to everybody. He's very sure of himself. He's the one that introduces her to Mrs. Whatsit, Mrs. Who, Mrs. Which. It's just, he's the one that understands all this stuff. And just the way this little kid acts throughout this entire movie, he's gonna draw you in. He absolutely steals the show, and is great. And there are times in this film where it's just like he's given, like, it's not like some other kids film. And I'll say this about this film too. Like, it's not like some other kids films that don't rely on their kids doing like real heavy lifting, like real deep heavy lifting. Like, there are some really deep heavy lifting moments here for some of these kids in this film, and they pick it up, and Deric does a great job as Charles Wallace with what he's asked to do throughout this film. And yeah, like, it's at times I'm going like, well, where did this little kid come from? I gotta look it up. Like I said, I didn't have my time to do my proper research on where his kid was and if he's done anything else. But yeah, he was fantastic in that role, and I think all the kids kind of were. I mean, I think that he's the one that obviously was most in touch with himself. Oh, he's the character. Charles Wallace more in touch with what he is and what himself is, and you saw that throughout this film with and again, great standout from there. The visuals are really well on this film. It's very very beautiful. You never felt like they were stretching their budget too far with the visuals. Sometimes when they do live action kids films, like they go really like low bar. No, everything here looks really really well. I don't know if I don't think this is a film that's kicking Black Panther out of IMAX. I don't know if I can't remember if they put this in IMAX or if they even did it in 3D. If they did though, I can see why. I mean, I think it looks really really great. I think it would look really really nice in IMAX, and I can definitely see where some of the 3D elements would come in at, especially for something like this. I mean, they have some really trippy visuals here with some of the things they do, and I think that putting it in IMAX or putting it in 3D would actually not be too bad for this film. So, yeah, I think the visuals look really, really well. I mean, you can tell they definitely gave it $100 million budget. And I want to say next to Patty Jenkins, because she got $100 million, over $100 million for Wonder Woman. I think Ava might be only the second female director to get a $100 million budget. That's bullshit. I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm not going to go into one of my typical rants about how Hollywood needs to do better when it comes to representation, but Hollywood needs to do better when it comes to representation. So I'll just leave it at that. So, all right. So let's get into some of the things that I think kind of didn't work for me in this film. And I want to say the first thing, I'm going to even say this for most of my bad things. And I want to put them in context in that I think this is going to be something that really bothers a lot of people, a lot of adults, is that none of us are the target audience for this. And I know people are going to go, oh, duh, I mean, it's a Disney film. Yeah, but like the target audience for this is probably a lot lower than I would have expected or liked. So, and I think it kind of hurts the film overall. So I want to say the target audience for this is probably 11 or 13. I was thinking it would probably be more around 15 to 16 as a low end of that, and not 11. And I think that it does hurt the film overall, just because I think that you can tell that this film is trying to find a good balance between, telling the story here that is, quite honestly, is based on science is a little bit complex. I mean, you're doing interdimensional travel to other worlds by finding a wrinkle in space-time to travel and use tesseracts. Like, it's a very serious and scientific film. And what ends up happening, because the film is aimed at smaller kids, they kind of glossed over some of the science that I think that if you had just made the film target audience a little bit older, you could have delved a little bit more into that. And I'll give you a perfect example. This film is just under 2 hours. I want to say it's an hour and 47 minutes, but don't get me wrong with that. I know it's definitely under 2 hours. And I think that it messes up some of the. I think by cutting that stuff out, and I understand that, because when you have, let's say, an animated films are usually run 90 minutes, because anything over that and that kid kicking my chair then becomes a kid who's kicking, screaming, and not paying attention to anything, kicking my chair. So I think that there was a concerted effort here to keep this film under 2 hours, as to not lose the target audience. And I think that the downside to that is that we don't get this. There's plenty of times in here where they're kind of going into the science of some things, and they either gloss over really quickly, or they just kind of they don't go far enough with it. And it was hard for me to reconcile. And this is why I'm like, it's kind of your mileage may vary. Like, if you come into this film knowing and expecting it to be aimed for kids way lower, then I think it's fine. If you're coming in expecting, to have that 15 to 16 base level, because here I think there's a huge difference between having going something for 11-year-olds and doing something for 15 to 16-year-olds. And 15 and 16-year-olds can handle a lot more, and you can go a lot deeper into the science. And I don't think that people who are expecting a little bit more are going to be that happy or excited with this film, because what happens is it feels at times it feels a little empty. Like you're there, you're getting some stuff, and then you don't get it. Like there's one of those moments where Meg does something, and well, actually this goes into my second part here, and um, I kind of wish I saw Meg doing more science. And it's not to say that she wasn't doing science. It's not saying that she doesn't do it. She does, but it's a good way of saying this. It's so you know how in Black Panther we have Shuri, and this is where again I think it's not like a total. It's not a totally a bad thing. So Shuri in Black Panther was all about science, but she was very outgoing. She was very confident in her abilities. She's running the tech lab. In Wrinkle in Time, you're getting a different type of child, different type of a child who is into science. There's one who's very introverted, one who doesn't really believe in all her abilities, thinks her abilities aren't all that special. She's kind of hiding. So I can see why that is kind of being able to give you a different, like, not every child out there who's going to be a Shuri who's out there and is just open and honest and great about their science. A lot of kids grow up and they feel like they have to hide their smarts, they have to hide their abilities. And so I think that Meg is going to definitely be a character that a lot of kids can relate to. I still do kind of wish that we had saw more because we're constantly told in the film how special Meg is. I kind of wish we saw it more. And it's not to say we don't get that. There's definitely some times she gets that, but I just like I think that we're supposed to expect that her to be just as smart as her father. And again, at the beginning of the film, we see her working with like I would like to see some scenes, and I think these scenes got cut because or they just weren't there because they're trying to keep the film down. Of like when Mega's home, she's doing some science stuff. She's working on these things on her own. Maybe not in front of everybody else because nobody else will believe it. Or even like seeing her like trying to understand her father's work and trying to do like what we were missing, and I think this is what it is. It's just coming to me. We're missing the scene to me that happens in every one of these films where you have a child trying to find a missing loved one. We're missing the scene of Meg working on her father's work, trying to find the missing piece. Find a way to find her father and stuff like that. Because we didn't get that, it's like when you get everything else introduced, you're kind of like, it just kind of feels kind of a little bit off here. Which leads to my last thing. I think the pacing is a little bit off on this. It's like the beginning of the film kind of feels a little bit rushed together, so you can get meet Mrs. Who, Mrs. Whatsit, and Mrs. Witch, and you're just I don't know. They come out of nowhere, like literally come out of nowhere, and it doesn't feel. It feels like we're rushing to get to compact that part of the story where we spent just a little bit more time kind of seeing things like Meg working on the science, Meg working on this, being frustrated and not doing that. Then I think the introduction of these other characters wouldn't have felt as rushed here. I think once that happens, you kind of feel like it's a rush to the end and we're not getting enough time on each place. But again, I think it comes down to when you have your film aimed at younger kids, you're really trying to get a film that's under a 2-hour time window. And I really feel like this would have been a film that could have benefited from 2 hours and 15 minutes. Really going out and explaining some of this stuff here. But now, caveat on all these things here, got to go back to what I said before. This is a film that's not really aimed for adults. So it's aimed at these 12 to 13-year-olds. Like when Ava came on the screen, she said, hey, and again, this was the first sign that, hey, I need to get out of this mindset. She was like, hey, make sure you this is for 12 to 13-year-olds. You make sure you watch this film and you get in touch with the 12 and 13-year-old inside of you. And I think that's going to be something that, one, a lot of critics aren't going to do, and two, a lot of the older general audience aren't going to do as well. Like, it's something weird about the fact that when a film when a film's live action, we tend to judge it harsher than, say, it's animated. And what I mean by that is, look, if I go watch an animated kids film, I immediately get into the mindset of, it's a kids film. And so my method of grading the film, the method of like critiquing the film is definitely different. It's not to say that films can have adult themes. So like I think Coco could have definitely been in the best picture category this year, not just relegated to best animated feature. But that goes to the mindset of adults when we see kids films. Like we immediately put it into the category of kids films. And so the way we critically, review these films is differently. I think to me, A Wrinkle in Time is basically a live action animated kids film. And I think a lot of people are going to go into this film and try to like grade it on as you would on a PG-13 or R-rated film. And I'm pretty sure that the rating on this one, let me double check, but I think the rating on this one is actual just PG. Yeah, the rating on this is PG. So this is a PG film. So that should also be another sign here that, hey, a PG film got to bring down a level of expectation here, because hell, Black Panther and them, that's PG-13. So you see the difference here when it comes to the type of films being made here, and I don't think enough of the emphasis is being put on up front of this film that this is a PG film that's aimed at 12 to 13-year-olds, and it definitely changes your mindset. Like, I'm not gonna lie, when I came out of theater a little bit, I was a little iffy on how I felt about this film, because I was just like, I felt a little bit something was missing, but then I realized what was missing was the 13 part of it. Like I had the PG part, but I didn't get the 13 part, and it's because, well, it's not a PG-13 film. You're not gonna get the deep explanation of science here because, hey, the kids that this is aimed for aren't gonna understand that science. And when I think back to the film, because basically what I did was I slept on this film before I actually did this review. I slept on it. I woke up early. This is like 5 o'clock in the morning. I slept on it and I started thinking about it, and I go back to certain scenes and I realized that there's a moment there where Christopher Pine's character is literally talking about the science behind how you get to one point or another, and it's not dumbed down, but it's definitely, compared to some other films that we've seen. Hey, people people love this is exact. It's gonna be weird because this is gonna be the exact problem I had with Annihilation. Annihilation was a R-rated adult film where they could have explained some of the science and they didn't bother to. Well, with A Wrinkle in Time, you're not going to really go too far into that science because you're going to lose your core audience. And kids don't care about that kind of stuff. They don't. So that's where I think that the problem's going to come in for most people. And honestly, I get it. I don't think that this film is going to be for everyone, because of that. Because you're going to come out and you're going to be expecting so much more. And again, it's aimed a lot lower than I think a lot of people are expecting here. So, but if you go in expecting, a kids film, if you go in expecting something aimed for, like, this is a film you bring your kids to, you bring your little nephew to, you bring your niece to, you bring the neighborhood kids to. Like, this is the film you do that kind of stuff for. It's not exactly sure it's that same experience. I know it's going to happen. People are going to go, you should have supported this just as much as you supported Black Panther. And yes, but I think it's also a little bit of a different target audience, and it's honestly not going to be for everyone. It's just not. If, like I said, it's going to be very, very interesting. We're doing a group viewing on this weekend for it, and I'm going to be very interested in seeing how the group of adults, mostly adults, is going to feel about this film. Particularly if we all go together and nobody's really bringing kids. So I think that's going to be an interesting thing here. Because again, I feel like, oh man, if it just been like 15 to if it had been a PG-13 film, I think we would have gotten a little bit more of the science, and it would have felt a little bit less, not empty, but it just feels like there's a missing piece here when I'm watching this film. That just kind of gets to me. But again, I think the overall themes kind of take care of that. I'd give this film I'm gonna give this film a 7.5 out of 10. Again, I think you have to, once you get into the mindset of, hey, this is a film that's literally is a kid's film. It's such a kid's film. It is a PG-13, it's a PG Disney film. It's not gonna give you that depth you would get from like a PG-13 film or a film that was aimed at older people, older kids and young adults and things. It's just not aimed for that. So, but I think the overall themes that they're going in this film about love, about loving yourself, about opening up yourself and not being afraid to be who you are and finding yourself. I think those themes are very, very important this time. And I think it's messages that kids need to hear. I mean, I think it's a message that some adults need to hear. I think a lot of adults can relate to the Meg character in this film. And I think that is enough for people to go see this film. I think it's enough to give it a 7.5 out of 10. It's shot really well. It's shot beautifully. I said the characters are enjoyable. I mean, it's there. Like I said, it's just missing this one little piece over here. But again, not the target audience. So I can't really knock it too much for me personally not having that much of a connection with it outside of the themes, or not being exactly what I wanted, because, well, it's not. I'm at the target audience, so yeah. If I get it again, and it's one of those weird things where, like, I'm one of those people that I'm really against them doing things like making R-rated X-Men films, because I know the X-Men characters are characters I grew up as a kid, and I believe that kids deserve that same right. They deserve to have the fun films. It's like when people get mad at the Marvel Studios films for having too much humor. It's like, well, fuck, they're aimed at kids. Like, comic books are aimed at kids. Like, you want to take these characters. You're being selfish, and you want to take this stuff that you grew up on as a kid. You wanted to grow up with yourself and don't leave it for the kids behind you. Like, that's kind of fucked up. And I will say that, when it comes to A Wrinkle in Time, there are a lot of live action kids films that are aimed at kids that just aren't good. Like fucking Spy Kid franchise was just like, that's torture to sit there as an adult and watch that with your kid. I've never had to do it as an adult, sit there in a theater to watch it, but I've seen enough of the Spy Kid movies. No, they're terrible. They're fucking terrible. So this is a live action kids film that has serious themes. It's treated seriously. Has the money put behind it, looks amazing, has some really, really good themes, still aimed at kids, but I don't think it's torturous for adults to sit through with their children. I think that it's enough there to kind of have that connection with, and you can do it. And again, like I said, I think it's just this weird thing where if it had been animated, there would be no doubt people would fucking love it. And it's understandable. I think our brains handle animated films versus live action films completely different. So anyway, folks, that is my review for A Wrinkle in Time. I'm hoping that after Phenom didn't see it with me, so I'm thinking that after we have our viewing on this weekend, that me and him, we either get together, do a non-spoiler review or really a spoiler review, and that'll go up. I gotta figure out if we're gonna put that up on premium or not, but we'll do that, because I really do want to have another person here, another adult, to discuss this film with. And so I'm really looking forward to that conversation to see how they felt about this. So, but yeah, make sure you subscribe to this channel, hit the notify button so you can see all the other reviews we're getting. We also have an entire network of podcasts here to talk about that sometimes has more of our discussions than they're on this channel. We don't put everything on here because I don't want to flood you guys with too much stuff. So make sure you subscribe to Super Tuesday Recap. That's where you get The Flash, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. I can't wait for Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. Episode 100. We do Arrow. We do all the Arrowverse. So all those reviews. We got Star Trek Discovery, The Gifted, and a bunch of other stuff. We do all of those. Oh, we're going to have Jessica Jones coming out soon because Jessica Jones comes out this week. So all that stuff is on our Super Tuesday Recap podcast. So subscribe to that, iTunes, Stitcher, anywhere you get your favorite podcast. We have some movie trailer reviews. That is our movie review podcast, or Phenom and I review all kinds of movies. Just about anything that comes out, we're reviewing it. So we got a bunch of stuff like that. I think next week we have, later this week we have Gringo. Phenom reviewing that. And then we'll also have Tomb Raider next week. The Character Corner podcast, where Deepam and I talk about your favorite characters in comic books and we explain them. We're actually recording our next one this weekend. Batman Part 1. So that's going to be fun as well. We're going to talk about Batman. And also put a little respect on Bill Finger's name, because a lot of people have not forgotten him. So, but yeah, just make sure you find those podcasts and everything else. If you want to just get everything there, just search for MTR Network. We'll pop up and you'll see all of our podcasts on your favorite podcast catchers. So do that, folks. And thank you guys very much. Leave a comment. Let me know if you go to see A Wrinkle in Time. Let me know what you think and how you feel, particularly as an adult. I would like to know how adults felt about this film. And if you guys could relate to it. So thank you guys very much for watching. Until next time, we're out of here. Peace.